Welcome back. Thanks for staying with us. Bernie, he's a brand. AOC is a brand, and they have a tour right now called Fighting Oligarchy. And it's kind of propelling progressive lawmakers maybe to the front of the line to become the face of what amounts to Democratic Party resistance. And there are lots of opinions about how formidable or non-formidable that is. They've taken on the Trump administration, importantly, in front of very large crowds, including this one in Nampa, Idaho. Where is Nampa, you ask? Just outside of Boise. Watch.
We're here together because an extreme concentration of power, greed, and corruption is taking over this country like never before. You know, it's bone-chilling. Every day there's something new.
Joining us, tonight's political reporter panel, congressional reporter for the Washington Post, Marianna Sotomayor, to my immediate left, and the founder and editor of 24 Site News, Tom LoBianco, just across the desk over there. Marianna, I want to start with you. Look, back in 2016, there was this horseshoe effect in American politics where those who supported Bernie Sanders and those who supported Donald Trump were not as far from each other as they were from the establishments of both parties. That's still out there. And it appears that Bernie and AOC are tapping into that.
Yeah, and it's interesting to see both of them just going out there. That's a big lesson that Democrats have taken away from 2024.
Show up. What happens?
Exactly. Talk to people. Go into red states, red districts. But they're the only ones really doing it. And, you know, there is a little bit of this horseshoe effect that you're talking about within the Democratic Party as they try and figure things out. And what I mean by that is that, you know, a lot of the moderate blue dogs, let's say, in the House, are kind of talking and singing from the same page as those progressive caucus members when it comes to populism, trying to talk to the working class. They obviously have different ideas about how to get there and how to win over voters, but there's, again, these two very different groups ideologically who are trying to reach out to this working class, very frustrated base who just want to hear the same thing. Fight against the establishment, fight against, you know, these big businesses that are taking away your money. All of that is kind of coming to a head. But of course, the rest of the Democratic Party kind of questioning and watching to see just how much these progressives actually make inroads. Because again, another lesson of 2016 and 2018, that backlash to Trump was you can't go too far left because then the Democrats are going to end up right where they were in 2024.
Right, because, Tom, the White House says over and over again, they, meaning the progressive left, have lost touch with the American electorate. They point to the 2024 election. They point to the erosion of African-American, Latino voters, Asian-American voters, and say, go ahead. Reacquaint yourself with your infatuation with the progressive left. Draw your crowds that will beguile you into thinking you're more popular than you actually are.
You know, and Marianna said this, you know, which part of the progressive left, right? Are we talking about social issues or economic issues?
Right.
And the more that you see, you know, I'm doing a reporting project right now, which will be published in a little bit. I don't want to say when exactly, but it's
nice teaser.
A deep dive into an Indiana lieutenant governor who's kind of a second generation Mike Pence, if you will, very tapped in with the Christian right, the new Christian right. And I was out on the trail with him a couple weeks ago, and in rural Indiana, answering questions about the Department of Government Efficiency, gets a question about some of the spending cuts that they're doing. The money does not have a good answer for it. This comes up organically, and this is not plants,
you know, right.
It's at the Rotary.
Okay, not exactly the place you're going to find Democratic plants at the Rotary Club. Yeah.
I was fascinated, and I think this goes to what we're seeing.
And that tells you what? That there's something out there that's bubbling that maybe conservatives need to pay a little bit more attention to?
Very much that, whether we call it Democratic Tea Party, but very organic energy. I just keep thinking about the way that a lot of Republicans are responding right now, the way Pelosi used to 16 years ago. Well, this is not real. We don't need to worry about this. Ads on Craigslist. You know, I've seen people respond, okay, fine. If you would like to get paid, then respond to whatever that ad is and please show up. You know, I think it's real. I'm seeing it out there in the field, anecdotally.
And Marianna, the place that this is going to most clearly and and visibly manifest will be in recruitment for Democrats in House races. And I know they're feeling very bullish about that. They keep adding Republicans to their list of potential targets next year.
Yeah, and I will say some of those Republicans were kind of surprising on that list because they do represent safe districts. I've already heard from some of their own aides who've moved out to those states already.
From their place here in D.C.
Yeah, from their place here in D.C.
To pay more close attention to what's going on the ground.
Yes.
In those districts.
Exactly. And this was even before, in some cases, before Trump even won, because they remember what it was like in 2018. It was such a slaughterhouse, frankly, for Republicans on the Hill in the House. Democrats won big, and Democrats are hoping for that. But it's also causing a little bit of concern from this more pragmatic class of Democrats who don't want the party to take away the wrong lessons if they win big. It doesn't mean, again, go far left. It means keep listening to people on the ground, and especially because at this time, Democrats don't really have a united message on a multiple of different issues. So again, Democrats, as much as they are on the pathway historically to potentially take back the House, there's, again, just too many lessons that still need to be learned before they can actually get there and say, we won this on our own.
Right. Tom, I'd like to get your perspective on something that's gone on this week, which is the great miniaturization of the Trump presidency. Meaning, this is a presidency that's super powerful. The president says all the time he's exercising executive power in new and bold ways. He's had the most, in his terminology, successful, ambitious 100 days in American history. And yet, with Kilmar Abrego Garcia, he is utterly powerless. He has no agency whatsoever to do anything to reverse an error his own administration has admitted to in court.
Yeah, it's, I mean, this reminds me
that's not how they would describe it, but that's the way to look at it.
Yeah.
I'm powerless. I can do nothing.
All powerful to no power. It reminds me of like a lot of the talk with like UFOs and drones and whatnot from a couple months ago. I think it was the first White House press briefing. You know, Caroline Leavitt repeated the same thing John Kirby had said like a month earlier. Okay, nothing there. Well, I don't know. I mean, there's a huge audience for UFOs, UAPs, or whatever. Could be answered very easily, like a JFK document dump, for instance, which revealed CIA secrets, but not more about JFK.
Right.
Yeah, and I think what we're seeing, this dichotomy, is starting to become more apparent. I mean, the further we get away from Inauguration Day, the further we get away from, there's a miniature bump and some incredible books out right now regarding the Biden presidency. John Allen, Amy Parnes out with another great deep dive fight.
Chris Whipple.
Yeah.
Just had him on the show yesterday.
Whipple, incredible. Another Hoosier, Ron Klain. Always, wherever you go, there's a Hoosier. But we're getting so far away from Biden did it to the point where it's like just Trump, 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 Trump.
The ownership begins to apply and begins to stick. Tom LoBianco, Marianna Sotomayor, thanks so much for being with me. I appreciate it.